You're watching Indiana's own Wish TV, Channel 8.
A deadly pileup on a California interstate. And the Atlantis astronauts are coming home early. This is the CBS Evening News. And this is Bob Schieffer reporting. Good evening. Police in California are still trying to untangle what may be the worst highway accident in history. More than 100 cars and trucks strung out along Highway 5 in the San Joaquin Valley, about 165 miles southeast of San Francisco. Casualties also in the hundreds, and tonight authorities are trying to figure out just how it came to happen. Richard Roth has our report from Los Angeles.
Miles of the highway linking San Francisco and Los Angeles were still closed today, looking like a desolate desert junkyard where the interstate runs through dried-out farmland, where the pileup occurred.
The speed limit here is 65, and they were probably driving that when all of a sudden visibility dropped to 0, and they literally had no chance.
It was mid-afternoon yesterday, a sudden windstorm whipping dust and soil into a screen of darkness over the interstate. On the southbound lane, collisions came quickly in a deadly chain reaction. Impossible to see or to stop. Bill Bennett heard it, then he felt it.
All of a sudden, bang, bang, bang. I can't tell you. It happened like that.
At least 17 people were killed, 150 injured in at least 4 separate crashes and the fires that followed.
This particular vehicle here had 4 occupants in it, and they all perished in the fire.
Some survived by sensing trouble, pulling off the road just in time. Others made it by chance, escaping with injuries and terrible memories.
A man just took a child out of some car or something, and he died right in front of me.
I would like to forget it, you know. It's something that happened, and there is no way we could have avoided it.
At least 11 big rigs and 93 other vehicles were involved in the wreckage. Authorities are still trying to reconstruct the precise chain of deadly events. Lieutenant Governor Leo McCarthy blamed it all today on the sudden fierce wind and California's punishing drought.
There were no rains in the last few weeks to hold down this soil, and motorists came into this thick dust storm and couldn't see. They were blinded completely.
Fog is the usual fear on this stretch of road, usually with enough warning so that traffic is slowed or stopped. The difference with the wind, said a highway patrolman, is that no one knew it was coming. Richard Roth, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The weather also turned deadly in Missouri this weekend. A tornado knifed along a 15-mile path in Christian County, leaving 2 people dead and 62 others hurt. More than 200 homes were damaged by winds clocked at 80 miles an hour. Trouble with the navigation system will mean a shorter trip than planned for Shuttle Atlantis, which has been out in space deploying a new spy satellite. Under the new plan, they'll return home tomorrow. Aaron Hayes has our report.
They hoped to be in space 10 days, but a piece of navigational equipment failed this morning, and the astronauts were told to get ready to come home early.
We are working on a timeline for you for an entry tomorrow, and we should have that timeline to you in about a half hour.
What failed is part of the navigational equipment in the shuttle orbiter's cockpit, what's called an inertial measurement unit, or IMU. There are 3 IMUs on board. Number 2 failed. Efforts to restart it this afternoon didn't work.
Landis Houston for Fred, we see no joy on IMU 2.
Technically, only one of those IMUs is needed to navigate the shuttle safely out of orbit and back smoothly to Earth. But NASA wants the assurance of at least one good backup unit and is taking no chances.
Loss of an IMU past a certain time into the flight and past a certain number of objectives being achieved requires that we land at the next planned landing site.
This won't be considered an emergency landing. NASA just sees it as cutting the mission short, something that has happened before. To keep things on the safe side, though, the shuttle is now set to land at the larger dry lake bed site at Edwards Air Force Base in California instead of in Florida as originally planned. One concern, the weather might not cooperate. Because of that, the astronauts might not land until Monday. In the meantime, they've had time to take some pictures and finish a few experiments. The mission isn't a failure by any means, but NASA will rest easier when Atlantis is safely back on Earth. Aaron Hayes, CBS News, Atlanta.
President Bush and Soviet leader Gorbachev talked today on the phone about tomorrow's independence referendum in the Ukraine. Gorbachev said the expected yes vote does not mean that the Ukraine will break away from the Soviet Union. He lost another power struggle with Russia's president today, and Jonathan Sanders in Moscow has that.
Boris Yeltsin emerged from the Kremlin tonight announcing that he had come up with a plan to save the Soviet state bank from ruin. He said from now on, its solvency will be guaranteed by the Russian state. Yeltsin's announcement came after the bank's chairman went on TV last night to explain that the bank had run out of money and could no longer pay the government's bills or people's salaries. Yeltsin's decision only underlined how much Mikhail Gorbachev's power and authority have eroded, a further signal of his growing political irrelevance. As the central government crumbles, the Russian government increasingly is stepping in to fill the vacuum. But Yeltsin's intervention came with a price. In return for stopping this weekend's financial crisis, the Russian government gained control over the deficit-ridden national budget. Yeltsin says he will not balance the budget simply by minting